So I want you guys to see how you can really put yourself into your writing. So what do you guys already know about voice?
Right there, I definitely could have figured out a better way to transition into talking about the definition of voice. And also, I had all intentions of having one of the students write for me on the board because I didn't want my back to be to the class while I was teaching, but for some reason it just didn't enter my mind while I was actually doing the lesson. So that's something that I would change if I was doing something like this next time.
Alright, so can someone read this definition out to me that I have at the top of the page? No, I just said it, but...
Voice is the person behind the words that speak out to the audience.
I think that in this definition of voice, I might have put a little bit too much into it. I was trying to get them to realize that it's the person behind the voice and it makes it personal and engaging and powerful, but I think that I might have put a little bit too much into the explanation and it might have just confused students a little bit more.
It's memorable in your writing, and it kind of heightens your consciousness of words and their sounds in writing. So that's what we're going to work on today. One way that I'm going to show you guys is, have any of you guys heard of Def Jam poetry?
I wish that right here I had further explained exactly what Def Jam poetry is, because it is such a powerful movement within poetry and pop media and all of that, that I think I really could have taken that opportunity to relate to students and make this assignment relevant and interesting to them.
She is an 18-year-old girl. She's your age, and she's writing this beautiful poetry, and her voice is extremely relevant, and it's powerful in these words. So while we're looking at this, Erin, could you pass these out to everyone? Thank you. I want you to...
While the students were watching the video, I wish that instead of staying at the front of the room, had gone to the back of the room, because then I would have realized that the screen is probably pretty hard to see since the lights weren't turned off. And that might be kind of minor, but I guess in my mind I wanted to see the students' reactions to see what they actually noticed, but I probably still could have done that from the back of the room, and then maybe that would have been a little bit better.
When you can see this in her poetry. So, what did you guys write down? Where did you hear or see her voice in this poem?
Well, I wrote down that her hands are as animated as she is in her voice.
During this section, when we were actually discussing the video, I was really glad that, one, I was writing down what they were saying so that I could better synthesize it later, and two, I was glad that I was actually able to respond to students. That's something that I've been working on every week, and I think I'm getting better and better at being able to listen to my students and not be distracted by, what's next and what am I saying next and all of that, and just listen to them and respond.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of words did she use that stood out to you in that part? Like what did she say? How is that her voice? Is it...
I think it shows like a stage in her life where she was like too busy and too worried about other things, because she keeps saying too many, too many, too many.
Mm-hmm. That's true. What else, guys?
I heard it with the speed and the rhythm. When she talked, she would get faster and slower depending on how involved, I guess, she was with what she was talking about. And you could hear it when she would talk about politics. She would get really, really fast and say, it's not about politics. And you could tell that was important.
Mm-hmm. Did the rest of you guys hear that? How she would speed up or slow down, or her voice gets softer or louder when she cares more about something or when she's trying to make a point? Did you guys hear that when she was talking? Yeah, Erin. I think that you guys could definitely see where it is in her writing and in her speaking. And it's sometimes easier to see when someone is, speaking the words and you can see them using their hands and using their face, but it's a little bit harder when you're just reading the poem. We're going to see what we can do with that. Well, son,
So this was actually the second time through reading the poem during class. I wanted a student to read it, me to read it, and then we would read it together as a class. I thought that when teaching voice, it would be really important to hear it a couple times and from different people, because maybe you would hear the voice in a different way with someone else reading it. And then I really liked the idea, and I think Dr. Cater actually mentioned it in a class a long time ago. It might have even been in the summer with doing choral readings, but having students join in lines that they really liked or something like that. And I thought, what a great idea to do that with voice. And because most likely they would all hear the same thing. And so I thought this would be a really powerful way for students to hear this, to hear exactly where the voice was. And I think it turned out really well.
Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor. Bare. But all the time, I've been on my own, and reaching landings, and turning corners, and sometimes down in the dark, where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn your back. Don't you sit down on those steps, because you find it's kind of hard. Don't you fall now, for I's still going, honey. I's still climbing, and life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Did you guys see how a lot of you underlined the same things? Did you hear that when we read it? That this voice truly comes through in this poem. When you guys, that choral reading, you can hear it. You can hear it when all of our voices got heightened and all of us were reading at the same time. This voice really comes through in this poetry.
So that was really only a few clips of my entire lesson, but overall I was really pleased with the way it went. I think that I was taking a risk in teaching something that I definitely wasn't really that comfortable teaching, something like voice that's kind of hard to pin down into this concrete definition of exactly what it is because different people are going to hear voice in different ways. But I wanted to try something while with our cohort that I wouldn't be so comfortable with right away in the classroom and try that with my peers just so I could kind of see how it went. And I think it actually went pretty well, and I loved the idea of doing the choral reading, so thank you, Dr. Cater, for that idea. But overall, I think it went really well. There's definitely some things that I still need to work on and that I think I am continuing to get better and better every week, but I need to work on being more comfortable, and that's just going to be an ongoing struggle for me. I think I'm getting better at looking more comfortable up there. I need to, as always, work on responding to students, and again, I'm getting better with that, but sometimes it is challenging, especially within our cohort, just because most of the time the responses that we get are wonderful and entirely correct most of the time, so sometimes it's kind of hard to get them to further their thinking and keep probing questions and stuff like that because in their one answer they answered everything. But that definitely doesn't happen in the classroom, and in my field experience I've been fine with leading discussions and stuff like that. So overall I think it went really well. There's definitely some things I'll work on for next week, but overall I think well.